Sorry, my hand-eye coordination is lacking. Hi, so sorry for the awkward start. My name is Peggy, and just want to say Prezi is really cool. I've used it before in school, but ironically, I'm talking about a different presentation tool today. I didn't know this ahead of time, but apologies in advance. So briefly about myself, I'm a software engineer at Clever. We're an education tech startup a few blocks away, and we build a platform that connects K-12 students and teachers, making it easier to access all of their learning applications. We use Go at Clever, but I started learning Go before I joined Clever about a little bit over a year and a half ago. And I was one of the early members of the Women Who Go organization, a support community for women learning Go in the San Francisco Bay Area and now around the world. I also run the Women Who Go Twitter handle, so if you tweet at that, it's probably me responding. And I really like emojis, so here are some random emojis symbolizing things I like. It's maybe not so random, actually. During this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about choosing a slideshow or presentation tool and why I chose to use the one that you see here. I'm going to go over some examples showing present in action in addition to this kind of meta example. Go over talking about how you can deploy really easily using Google App Engine, and just close up with some closing thoughts and some overviews. So the present tool is a command line tool written in the Go programming language, which is a language that came out of Google about 7 years ago. Started off as a more systems-based language, but now has evolved into a more mainstream general purpose language. It does not require writing any Go code in order to use, which is really cool. So I wrote a little bit of code to get this to like tweak some things in here, but you really don't need to write any code at all in order to use it, so that should not be a deterrent. And the reason why I chose to talk about this is kind of meta as well. I signed up to talk having come to the first 2 Hear Now sessions, and so I signed up to talk. That's awesome, but now what? First, I need a topic. What is something I know about and care about and can talk about and want to talk about? And second, how do I build my presentation? Like, what software do people use these days? So yeah, it turns out there are many options. The ones you hear about, like Google Slides is awesome. PowerPoint is a little bit slow on Mac for me. Keynote, also an Apple product. I think a colleague of mine told me about Beamer, which is apparently a LaTeX solution. So I wasn't really planning to use that. While brainstorming, I happened to be scrolling through my Twitter feed and saw this highly relevant tweet from someone I follow. In case the font's a bit small, it's asking what presentation tool should I use, Reveal or Remark, both of which are JavaScript frameworks. And apparently a lot of people said JavaScript is stupid, go away. So I guess that's not the right route. So now we go back to a more fundamental question of using the right tool for the job, which is an accent we hear very often with really good reason. And the right tool for you is the one that maximizes your productivity and that's most enjoyable for you. It's not necessarily, it could be, but it isn't necessarily, what's the most popular thing out there, or what your best friend recommends, or what Hacker News recommends, or any of that. And it's important to understand your requirements and what are like must-haves. What do you need, and what do you like not need, and avoid falling into the pitfall of feature bloat, basically, where you start getting sold on features that sound really awesome, but that you really don't need. As a concrete example, I really like being able to write text in a lightweight text editor and have it just work. And I really didn't want to drag and drop, like images and align things on a slide only for it to work and not render correctly in a different system or something. So that's where present comes into play. Like I mentioned, I have some background in Go, which really helped, and I was aware I had briefly used in the past a tool called present written in Go, and it was really easy to install. I'm not going to go into the details of how you install Go and Present, but I will say it literally takes about 1 minute to install both of them on a fresh system. And to prove that I'm not lying, I actually did this. There's a screencast at the bottom. I spun up like a new instance in the cloud, like Ubuntu like 14, installed Go, the programming language, and installed Present, the presentation tool written in the language. It's like a little bit over a minute because I typo a lot, so. Yeah, but basically, you just install the language, install the tool, and then you just type present. It's added to your path during the install process, and then if you open your browser, it just works, and that's awesome. As a quick example, this is Hello World, everyone's favorite intro example to everything. So use present, you just need to create a new text file with the .slide extension. And basically, the first line is the title, skip a blank line. You can put like author information, and then a slide title is a new line that begins with an asterisk. And save your text file, and then you can run present just by typing present into the directory in your terminal. And if you open your web browser and visit the URL that it outputs, you should see something like this. So yeah, present has support for basic text formatting like bold, italics, bulleted lists, links. I just used the Square WomEng handbook because it seemed like a fitting example. More excitingly, you can put in images. There are some really simple functions in your file. You just put like dot, the name of the function, and then like parameters sort of. So here, for example, we have an image and a caption. You can use HTML to directly embed HTML from other files hosted on that web server. So for example, if I have a simple file called like example.html and it's defined as so, and I include it using .html, example.html, it works. Apache reference, I guess. You can also put iframes, which is really cool. At the beginning of my talk, I mentioned a tool in JavaScript called review. And the best way to show an iframe, I guess, is to put a slideshow inside a slideshow. So once I get my mouse to work, yes, we have this. So this is review running in an iframe, running on present, linked from Google Slides. Yeah. And now my pointer doesn't work. Oh no. Okay. You can also enter code, and if you're using the Go language, you can also actually run code. So for example, if I have a file that prints out hello world, I can actually run it here in a browser, and it'll print hello world. There's a lot more powerful features you can do. It's actually based on something called a Go playground, which is like JS Fiddle for Golang. And quick note of security, because I feel like that's obligatory, sort of. You can actually run non-Go code as well. So there's a thing called native client, which makes sure that you're not running dangerous things. Here's a quick example where you're just echoing hello world from a bunch of different languages. But you could imagine how someone could easily use an unsecured web server to hack into your entire system and gain unauthorized access and things like that. But luckily, App Engine takes care of that for us. And now I'm going to give a brief overview of deploying via Google App Engine. So Google App Engine is a platform on Google Cloud Platform, similar to, I guess, like AWS by Google, or they probably don't want to be called that. But yeah, Present has built-in support for being deployed on Google App Engine, so it's really easy to set up. You can also run the same present command on any web server, or sorry, on any like server or any VM. You can also Dockerize it, like Jessica talked about, so that's really cool. If you want to use Google App Engine, you just create a new project in the online console, create an app.yaml file. You can basically copy the example one in the documentation and like just update it to like your file names, and then copy the present package that was downloaded during the install process into your current project directory. Download the App Engine SDK, and then you can just run go app deploy and visit your project name.appspot.com in order to see it in action. And if you look at the address bar, this is peggy-talks@appspot.com. So this is actually Google App Engine project. And so now that we've seen what Present can do, what are some reasons why it might not always be the best tool for the job? It is, like I said, you're running a web server, which sounds a little bit scary at first, especially if you haven't like run a server before, or if you haven't really worked in command line before. I think from an engineer's perspective, I think it's really great. But if you're just trying to design like a slide and this is like not how you want to learn like programming or systems management, for example. So like some basic familiarity is really helpful. It has a really simple markdown like syntax, like we briefly saw, but it's not actually true markdown. It has some weird quirks. You can't really copy paste like markdown from say your GitHub README and expect it to just work out of the box. And because it's very simple and minimal, you don't have a lot of features like themes and plugins and like drag and drop, for example, that you might like if you're going for a more intricate visual design. At the end of the day, I think the key takeaway is like the Go language in general, which has simplicity as one of its core design principles. Present is also very simple to use. It's one command to run. The look and feel of it, it's very consistent, recognizable across all presentations. And I really just think it avoids kind of that feature bloat. I don't have to navigate a complicated UI or deal with a bunch of command line flags to get it to work. It's really simple to get up and running and allows me to focus on writing content rather than like styling or animating content, which is also really fun, just not when I want to just write something and have it work. If you're interested, here are some additional resources and documentation. I won't really go through that in detail, but most of it is just official Go documentation. It actually powers the repo of official talks for the Go team, so that's pretty legit. And at the end, Present automatically inserts a thank you slide. So that's a wrap. Thank you.